what I've found to be the biggest cause of a plateau in power and fitness over the past 10 years of coaching. And it's really coming into this time of year now. I always see this happen. I speak to a lot of individuals, a lot of cyclists, busy cyclists, and they're finding that they started training before Christmas time, October, November, maybe they've started in January. And when they initially started doing some structured training or just getting on the turbo or whatever that may be, they did see an initial uplift in their power and fitness from the training that they were doing. But now, despite having done this for 8, 12, 16 weeks, very quickly they have actually hit a plateau. And despite riding 3, 4, 5, in some individuals I'm even speaking to now 6 times a week, they've actually increased the intensity, they've increased the volume that they're doing, and they're still not seeing the progress that they want to for the time that they're investing into their training and riding. And this has become quite frustrating. As I shoot this video now, it's the first week of March, and by now you're probably wanting to actually see some real good progress. You might have your first events of the year are coming up now in April, May, June time. You might have started to venture back out on the road a little bit, start some group riding again, and you're just not quite where you want to be. So I'm going to share with you today something you can do instantly if you're experiencing this, that is going to bring you back on track, and over the next 4 weeks you should still instantly see an increase in your power and fitness. So really the biggest problem that I've seen here is what happens is when we look at FTP, okay, functional threshold power, testing it, using it as a marker of where your fitness is currently at. Okay, now there's a lot of controversy coming out about FTP at the moment. Is it the right thing to use? Is it actually an accurate measure? Does it represent what your fitness is out on the road? There's lots of different research out there. There's lots of different opinions. I'm not going to go into that today. The most important thing with this that I want to share with you and what it's really useful for is actually getting a benchmark, an anchor to where your current fitness is. And then using that benchmark and that anchor to prescribe training zones accurately to perform, to actually then really see an uplift in your power and fitness. So you know you are targeting the specific energy systems when you're getting on the bike for where you are to actually see that progress. FTP for that is a fantastic way to do it. You know, you've performed this, you've got your power zones. When you're getting on the bike and you're doing a VO2 max session, great, I know that I'm there or thereabouts targeting that energy system. If you're doing any threshold work, threshold riding, you're looking to improve your ability to sustain power over a prolonged period of time, that might be from 15 to 30 minutes. You know, when you're training that energy system, or you're training your body to do that, that's where it is based off what your current FTP is. And then likewise with zone 2. Zone 2 training, or just trying to improve your aerobic capacity. Again, if you're trying to improve that and you know you've done an FTP test and that's about there or thereabouts where your functional threshold power is, you know that's roughly where your zone 2 power is. You can then also use heart rate data to correlate with that, so you know where exactly that is as well. Okay. Now, this is the biggest mistake, and stay with me because I'm going to share a few things on this through this video, but this is where the biggest mistake comes in. A lot of the riders that I speak to that haven't seen an uplift in their FTP or their power, their fitness is just generally thin and they're not making any progress. The last time that they or you may have done an FTP test, if you're feeling this, may have been actually last summer, okay? Or that may have actually been, October last year, November last year, where you might have had a bit of a break after the summer and you thought, okay, right, yeah, I'm going to get into some winter training now. I'm going to start some autumn training. Going into the winter, you may have actually done an FTP test. However, since then, you haven't retested. And as I said at the start of this video, what's probably happened is in that first 4 weeks, you did see an increase in your functional threshold power, or you just felt generally you could sustain a higher speed, a higher power output. You actually felt you were getting fitter. Your climbing may have improved within that initial 4 weeks. But when you got to that 4th week point of using that, your body had adapted to that training stimulus, the FTP that you were training at, okay? And because you then haven't retested and you've basically been training at that same FTP, now might have been for 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks, it might have even been longer, you haven't actually given your body a strong enough new training stimulus to see an uptick in power and fitness again. So basically what's happened is you may have done week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, and then you've seen some good progress at this point. You felt that that's happened, but because you've stayed training at that FTP, the body hasn't been then stressed enough to actually continue to see that progress with it. So what it's done is, despite you riding, and as I say, you may have actually been increasing the volume of riding that you're doing. You may have thought, yeah, I'm doing 3 sessions a week, okay, but no, I'm not seeing any progress. I want to go to 4. As I say, in some cases, I've even seen some individuals go, right, I'm not seeing any progress. I'm going to start training 6-7 days a week. And that's where that can then certainly start having a reverse effect of overtraining, not having power in the legs, not feeling fresh, and that can actually then start to see you go backwards with it. So you may have even seen a decline in your FTP at that point. Okay, so what I'm really trying to say here is you want to be trying to retest that FTP more regularly. And I would generally say 100% what you want to be doing with this is every 4 to 6 weeks is where you want to be doing some sort of test, okay? Whether that's the There's lots of different protocols out there. Again, in this video today, I'm not going to go into the benefits of each one, but we've got the 20-minute effort, we've got the ramp test, there's some sub-maximal tests out there. There's lots of different virtual platforms that are now coming out with their own different types of testing that you can do. And as I said, I'm not going to go into the details of which one is the best today, but even if you can just take one of those on the platform that you use or the method that you know has worked best for you in the past, and you perform that maximal or sub-maximal test every 4 to 6 weeks, that is actually going to prevent this flat line from happening or that plateau from happening. And that's because at this point, you will then give your body, let's say, you see an increase of 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 watts, whatever that may be in that 4-week period. You then actually retest, and okay, my FTP's gone from, should we say, 200 to 225 watts, and then your training sessions over the next 4 weeks, then you start training at that 225 watt FTP. And that provides a new training stimulus to the body. You're stressing those systems. So actually, what you may have found is, certainly if you haven't been doing much training in the past, is what your threshold intensity was potentially 8 weeks ago has actually now become or could be vice versa. What was your, should we say, VO2 max, so the real top end, has now become your threshold, and you know that, okay, you now need to be pushing 10 to 15 watts more on your VO2 sessions. So when you're actually doing those sessions, you are targeting that system and getting the benefits from improving your VO2 max, your body's ability to utilize oxygen, and the great benefits that are associated with that. And then likewise with threshold, what can happen here is what maybe was a threshold session for you here at this point when you did that first FTP test, that was the threshold session. You may find that, okay, what you were pushing at threshold here is actually now your tempo, and that your body has adapted, it's become fitter, it's become more efficient at, that lactate buffering. It can now buffer that lactate more, use that. It's working more efficiently from an aerobic standpoint as well. And what was your threshold here has actually now become your tempo. But without performing an FTP test, you may have just kept riding at tempo, and that sort of zone 3, which has been sort of referred to as that grey area. And that's why you've actually then just not improved, because you're not really targeting, you're not really accumulating a quality amount of time at aerobic or anaerobic. You're just sitting somewhere in the middle, and that's where that plateau's occurred. So it's really important. And if I draw this out for you here in a sort of a periodized approach with this, is that you test, as I've just said there, every 4 to 6 weeks. That ensures that when you're getting on the bike and the progress that you're making, you are targeting those systems and being effective with your training every time that you get on. So if you look at I call this like the periodization ladder, if you like. If we start down here, this is week 1, so that's week 1, week 2, week 3, and then what you may do, if you're following a bit more of a periodized, this is what we do when we work with our clients, individuals. We come in, we bespoke a tailored structure to you and your lifestyle to identify this. Week 4, you will actually recover, okay? And that's where here you'll then perform your next FTP test, and then you'll go back. And from this new FTP, you're actually at a higher point, as you'll come in, and this will be then week 5, week 6, week 7. We'll then rest, recover, and we'll retest again at week 8. But if you look here, this is actually, rather than just staying at that FTP, I'm not seeing any progress being made, because we've progressively overloaded again with the FTP, you have improved. So we're now at week 8. Okay, great, we've got that. We've had a recovery week. We can now push on. We can go to week 9, week 10, week 11, recover again, week 12. Okay, and you can see here we have a nice linear progression with it. Okay, the jumps here in FTP will depend on your training history, the level that you're starting from, the amount of riding that you're doing, your lifestyle. As I say, when we work with our clients, that's what we come in. We have an initial call together. We look at what you have been doing, the training, your lifestyle, personal, professional lifestyle, and find out what works best for you in terms of actually helping you tolerate this load to make this progress. But you can see here, just by more frequent, you might have, generally I will work on a 4-week progressive overload. Okay, but you might have a 6-week, or if you've got an event or something coming, you might work on a 5 or a 6-week to sort of bridge that gap with it. But generally, this is a really nice model. So week 12, and then we go again. We're at week 13, week 14, week 15, week 16, and we're in here. And again, we've progressively overload. This might be 25 watt increase. This might be a 10 watt increase. This might be another 10 watts. This might be 5 watts. What we see with our clients, it might be 5 watts, 10 watts, no watt improvement, 20 watt improvement. Okay, but just by actually having this structure, regularly testing, when you're getting on the bike, certainly if you're time crunch, you're not just getting on and you're using an FTP from 6 months ago, which really isn't an accurate representation of what you are. That is effectively the junk mild term, if you like, just getting them, she's just guessing. You don't actually know what you're training. There isn't any structure, there isn't any science behind what you're doing, and that will result in this plateau happening. Whereas if you actually retest this maximally, sub-maximally, more frequently, you can see a nice linear progression with it, and that will actually allow you to see the progress that you want to for the time and then what you're putting in with your fitness and riding as well. So if you're at this point with it, if we're here, the best thing to do is to do a test. Okay, as I said at the start of the video, if you retest and then you actually start training to what that gives you this week or next week, and when you can fit that test in maybe in the next 7 to 10 days, you train with that structure that I've given you here today for the next 4 to 6 weeks, I can pretty much guarantee you, unless you're really just getting on the bike and not doing anything structured at all, just riding, that you will see an improvement in FTP if you progressively overload. After doing an FTP for the next 4 weeks, you will see an uplift in your power and your fitness. If you found that useful, please drop a like on the video. Who am I, by the way? I make these videos, Ben from My Cycling Coach. I do this because I've been doing it now for the past 10 plus years. The science, the research, the practical application. We've helped over 500 cyclists achieve 3 watts per kilo and beyond with their riding now. That's through a combination of, increasing power and fitness, bringing down weight at the same time, achieving body composition targets. There'll be a link here somewhere on the page, probably in the description below. If you want to book in for a call, have a chat because you actually want some help with a more bespoke, tailored implementation for you and your lifestyle to do this, then book a call. Or if you just want to keep using the content on the channel for now, hopefully it's useful and it helps you as well, then please hit that subscribe button and I'll see you in the next video.